Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the breakfast news on Rajya Sabha television this Monday morning with me, Frank Pereira. Let's begin with this morning's headlines. Army veterans call off hunger strike on one rank, one pension after Prime Minister clarifies VRS won't deprive them of scheme. Protests to continue till government meets all demands. Rains in Assam and Andhra throw normal life out of gear. 19 people killed after being hit by lightning in Andhra. Flood ravages 2,000 villages in Assam. Rain deluge in Andhra and Assam, but drought in Maharashtra and Karnataka. Farmers leave villages as there is no food or water. After throwing open their borders for refugees, Austria says it is planning to phase out special measures allowing the unimpeded inflow. And Williams sisters set up a quarterfinals clash at the US Open. Sania and Bopanna cruise through to the next round in the doubles. Our top focus on the bulletin this morning. Army veterans called off their indefinite hunger strike on Sunday after Prime Minister Narendra Modi clarified VRS will not be a reason to deprive them of the one rank, one pension scheme. However, they said that the agitation will continue till the government meets all their demands. After close to 3 months of the agitation, the scheme was finally announced by the centre on Saturday. Here's more.
ये हमारे लिए बहुत खुशी का है कि हमारे जो मरण पे बैठे लोग थे उन्होंने अपना मान लिया हमारा रिक्वेस्ट और मरण को तोड़ दिया है। ये इसलिए कि सरकार ने इम्प्लीमेंट किया।
हमारा तो बहुत बुरा मिथा हुआ था कि हम इधर से उठेंगे नहीं जितनी देर तक और लाइट हमारे हाथ में नहीं आ जाता, लेकिन प्रधानमंत्री के विश्वास पर हमने मरण से तोड़ा है। थैंक यू, धन्यवाद।
For the last 3 months, these veterans stood firm on their demand for one rank, one pension. The nod finally came on Saturday, sans some of their key demands. One of them was pension for those who had taken premature retirement during service. On Sunday, during the inauguration of a metro line in Faridabad, Prime Minister Narendra Modi cleared the air, saying no one will be ignored to reap benefits of OROP.
सेना की आयु कम हो इसलिए उनको 15 साल के बाद नौकरी छोड़नी पड़ती है, 17 साल के बाद छोड़नी पड़ती है, 20 साल के बाद छोड़नी पड़ती है। कुछ लोगों को लगता है कि जो 15 साल 17 साल नौकरी छोड़ के गए उनको ओआरओपी नहीं मिलेगा। अरे आप ही तो देश की रक्षा करते हो, अगर ये ओआरओपी सबसे पहले मिलेगा तो आपको मिलेगा।
Meanwhile, politics over the announcement of the scheme continued. While the NDA accused the UPA government of not adhering to the OROP demand for years, former Defence Minister A.K. Antony termed the announcement as substantially diluted.
लिप सिंपैथी सब दूर सब सरकारों ने व्यक्त की थी। हर कोई कहता था हाँ देश के लिए जवान मरते हैं, सरकार का दायित्व, हर कोई कहते थे, लेकिन करने के लिए हर किसी को कठिनाई महसूस होती और आज मुझे भी महसूस हो रही है। ये सरल काम नहीं है, लेकिन मेरे देश के जवानों, हमने वादा किया और हम वादा निभा रहे।
What prevented them from announcing 2014 April onwards? Because that announcement was made by UPA. So they extended only how many months? April to July. Because they don't want to remind UPA's announcement. This is the way the government is playing politics.
But for the veterans, the struggle is not over yet. They now want all their demands met by the government.
अगर सरकार इसमें से कोई पॉइंट के ऊपर नहीं करती या हमारे सेटिस्फेक्शन के बेस है तो भाइयों हम फिर हंगर स्ट्राइक टिल डेथ के ऊपर आ जाएंगे।
The ex-servicemen said the revision of pension after a gap of 5 years as announced by the government is not at all acceptable to them. They've also sought an appointment of a one-man judicial commission to examine various aspects of the scheme. They've called for a mega rally at the Jantar Mantar to press their demands. With inputs from Pranav Goswami, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on to news now from the recently concluded G20 finance ministers meet in Turkey. India is on a sound footing was the message that Finance Minister Arun Jaitley focused on at the G20 meetings of finance ministers and central bank governors in Ankara, Turkey. Jaitley called factors like the Chinese devaluation of the yuan and the US Fed's likely interest rate hike transient. It's a view that other finance ministers also share. Here's a detailed report.
In an interview to news agency PTI in Ankara, Turkey, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley said only the real economy will dictate currency rate fluctuations and markets in India. But the big story at the meeting of the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors seemed to be the plight of the migrants, whose numbers are rapidly increasing on the borders of European nations. Referring to the heart-wrenching pictures of 3-year-old Alyan Kurdi, whose family was denied sanctuary by Canada, IMF chief Christine Lagarde called immigration everybody's problem.
Reality comes back to haunt you when you see the kind of pictures that were on display and on social media so vividly in the last few days, and it really identifies the link between jobs, between hope, and it certainly, from my perspective, reinforces the mission that we have to try to help and be as practical as we can on the ground, in programs and in the policy advice that we give. But it's everybody's business. It's not just international institutions' business.
Lagarde also referred to the market turmoil caused by investor expectations of slowing economic growth in China.
On the discussion we had with the Chinese authorities, it was a good, candid, very open, very thorough discussion, both on the market front, on the monetary policy front, touching on the exchange rate, touching on the reforms, what has been undertaken, what will be continued, a clear reaffirmation by the two authorities of their decisiveness and determination to continue the reforms.
German Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble also said finance chiefs had agreed there was no need for nervousness over slower growth in China.
Rolle gespielt. Die chinesischen Kollegen haben eine Einschätzung dieser Entwicklung gegeben. Und Sie haben übrigens darauf hingewiesen, dass Sie ja umfangreiche Strukturreformen beschlossen haben und dass Sie die auch kontinuierlich.
The meetings are being held at a time when India is being seen as the bright spot in the world economy. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has asserted that with manufacturing and services sectors picking up, India is on a sound footing and the government is focused on strengthening the real economy rather than being swayed by market volatility. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat this morning to talk about this is Harveer Singh, editor, moneybasker.com. Very good morning. Thanks for joining me on the program, Harveer. As far as G20 was concerned, it was the devaluation of the yuan that, really dominated the proceedings there. And the finance ministers of the 20 big global economies have come forward and spoken about how they're going to move towards a market-determined currency rate. Do you see that happening?
Actually, this G20 meeting happened at a very crucial time. After 2008 global crisis, I think, again, world economy is facing a similar kind of challenge. And at that time, G20 played very important role to make economy again come on this growing path and all. And as you already mentioned that this Chinese devaluation, the moment Chinese devaluated the yuan, immediately there was a huge crisis at the global front. Currencies on emerging markets were, I think, devaluating automatically in the market, as well as market crisis also happened worldwide. It started from East Asia to then countries like India, then Europe, then US, market tumbled like that. And a continuous volatility is there. If you see even markets, and as our finance minister mentioned, it is a transient. But again, everybody is talking about that. What will Fed do on interest rate in this month when the meeting will happen? So these two points are very important. And that Chinese economy is such a big economy now. Nobody can afford to avoid this thing, because any crisis happens in China will be a trigger of slowdown in a global economy.
Indeed.
But at the same time, we should also know that Chinese economy, market is also, I think market is in a very bad shape in China, but the exposure to the market is not very big from the banks. So only market crisis cannot be a very big, I think, negative side like happened in US in 2008. But the main crisis may come from real estate in China. That is the point. That's why everybody is worried. But if we see as India concerns that on all the fundamentals, basically on macro economic fundamentals, we are on a very strong footing.
Indeed. We are on a strong footing. But
Yes.
Finance Minister Arun Jaitley also called for global safety nets. He said that,
Yes.
to address problems of volatility of currency and also this volatility in the stock markets, we need some kind of corrective measures. So what do you think about that?
Actually, I think everybody in this meeting also tried to ask China, why are you devaluating? Or in future, if something should not happen, if any currency should be, the rate of the currency must be determined by the markets. So that was the main focus. We should leave this on the market instead of doing something different, just to keep your exports growing, to devaluate your currency to be more competitive in the international market. I think that was not the right step taken by China. So that was the point mainly. And even we have to see this job data in US and all. And I think majority of the economists are also saying that it is not necessary that it is the right time in US to increase the interest rate, because if interest rate goes up in US, so money will flow towards US, and definitely there will be withdrawal from emerging economies like India, Russia, Brazil, or all these emerging markets. So that is a worry for everybody. And as you mentioned, that Finance Minister said there should be a mechanism to stop this volatility through the IMF, or more and more liquidity should be available there. But I think in the short term it is not easy immediately to any multilateral organization cannot do suddenly these things. At the same time, one important point that this IMF chief Lagarde mentioned, that this migrant crisis, that is also because already European economy is under pressure.
Yes.
So the growth is very low, or just some countries are in a very bad shape. So this kind of migrant crisis will add the cost to these countries in billions of euros.
Indeed.
So it can also affect the growth path.
Sure. All right. Harveer Singh, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us on the program this morning and putting things into perspective for us. Moving on to our other top focus now, of course, the flood situation in Assam is grim. At least 7 people died in the last 24 hours, taking the total death toll to 40. Flood waters completely ravaged over 2,000 villages, and the Brahmaputra is flowing above the danger mark in at least 6 districts. Official data said over 16 lakh people are affected.
Assam is in the middle of an overwhelming flood situation that barely shows any signs of retreating.
स्थिति बहुत खराब है। यहाँ पानी बढ़ती जा रही है, दिन पर दिन बढ़ती जा रही है। सारे वृक्ष पानी में डूबे हुए हैं, सीढ़ियाँ डूब चुकी हैं, और गाय देख रहे हैं आप बह के यहाँ आए हुए हैं। यहाँ से कोई व्यवस्था नहीं है उनको हटाने के लिए। वातावरण प्रदूषित हो चुके हैं, वायु सब प्रदूषित हो चुके हैं।
यह पूरा नौगांव पूरा पानी के नीचे आ गया। वो ढींग, मुराबारी, लुपोही, लाहौरी घाट, ऐसे जितना है सब तो पार में पूरा आदमी का हालत सब खराब है।
Over 2,000 villages are submerged, with the Brahmaputra flowing above the danger mark in 6 districts.
For rehabilitation के लिए हमारा पूरा जो फील्ड मशीनरी है पूरी लगी हुई है और पूरी तत्परता से काम कर रही है। और जितना मदद हम कर सकते हैं हम कर रहे हैं, और सरकार की तरफ से जो भी ज़रूरत है वो उनकी पूरी की जा रही है।
Rescue teams are facing a tough time with the flood submerging camps of the Border Security Force in Dhubri district. Now they're operating from boats. The flood also poses threat to the densest population of one-horned rhinos in the world at the Pobithura Wildlife Sanctuary. 80% of the famous sanctuary lies submerged. Forest guards at the sanctuary are on a round-the-clock vigil to save the rhinos from falling prey to poachers. Official reports said over 16 lakh people were affected and over 2 lakh people are in relief camps. The state government has opened at least 300 such camps across the state. Over 1 lakh hectares are under flood waters. Not only the alarming scale of destruction across the Brahmaputra valley, but victims now face the risk of waterborne diseases as well. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on to Andhra Pradesh now, which has seen very heavy rains in the last 24 hours. 19 people have died across the state after being struck by lightning in separate incidents in 5 districts of the state. In Prakasam district, 6 persons, including 3 women, were killed when they were struck by lightning in separate incidents. Out of the 6 victims, 2 women died when the bolt struck them when they were working in a cotton field, while the rest of the victims included 2 farmers. Another victim was a borewell operator. In Nellore district, 5 people died. The deceased include a father-son duo. In Krishna district, 4 agricultural labourers, including a woman, were killed. In Guntur district, 2 persons died after they were struck by a bolt while working in a field. In Guntur also, women cricketers of Andhra Pradesh and Tripura had a miraculous escape when lightning struck the ACA stadium where they were playing a match. In East Godavari district, 2 people were killed when lightning struck them while they were returning from their work in the evening. While Andhra grapples with the problem of a heavy downpour, Maharashtra is faced with a drought situation. State Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis visited the drought-affected areas in Solapur district and took stock of the situation. He visited Kurnool Dam in Akalkot Tehsil in the district and interacted with farmers. The Chief Minister also inspected damaged sugarcane crops at Malikpet in Mohol Tehsil. Meanwhile, a drought has been declared in Gulbarga and North Karnataka too. There has been major crop damage due to lack of rainfall in the region. There is also shortage of drinking water. The situation is so grim that people are migrating to other states. Animals are also bearing the brunt due to shortage of water and fodder.
We've had 60% deficient rainfall. As a result, more than 50% of the area has not been sown by the farmers. There are a lot of reports of drinking water shortage in majorly three talukas of the district. Now, as of now, 27 villages we are supplying water through tankers.
हमारा हैदराबाद कर्नाटक जो प्रदेश है, इस प्रदेश में 4 महीने से बारिश नहीं आया। इससे हम बहुत जो खेती बाड़ी करते हैं लोग, हम बहुत तंग में हैं, क्योंकि हमारे को पानी पीने का पानी नहीं मिल रहा। लेकिन स्टेट सरकार, राज्य सरकार यहाँ पे नहीं ध्यान दे रहा है और केंद्र सरकार भी कुछ भी नहीं कर रहा है।
Well, it's time for a short break now, but still to come. The much-delayed talks on the UN Security Council reforms will commence soon. We'll tell you all about it and much more. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. The much-delayed talks on the UN Security Council reforms process could be initiated soon. The UN General Assembly President is likely to present a negotiating text for the reforms in the next few days. Once that text is tabled, the talks on the reforms process will begin. This is of particular importance to India that has been aiming for a permanent membership of the Security Council. It has received support from France and the UK on the same. The 69th session of the General Assembly nears an end and the voting on initiating talks on reforms is expected this week. That will be carried forward to the 70th session. A text that forms the basis of the intergovernmental negotiations on reforms was circulated to UN members by the General Assembly President. The next session begins from September 15th, so the vote has to take place before that. It is up to the President now to rule whether a simple majority or a 2/3 majority is needed for adoption. India has said that the process to expand the powerful UN body cannot be seen to be an exercise ad infinitum, and a results-based timeline is crucial to achieve a concrete outcome. Here's a look now at what's likely to take place during the course of the day today in our segment, The Day Ahead. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be addressing a national meet on promoting space technology-based tools and applications in governance and development at Vigyan Bhavan today. More than 1,500 delegates are expected to deliberate on the action plans of various ministries and departments after the Prime Minister had urged Department of Space to proactively engage to maximize the use of space science in governance and development in June. The Supreme Court will hear BJP leader Subramanian Swamy's plea seeking quashing of 6 criminal defamation complaints lodged against him for allegedly making comments against Tamil Nadu Chief Minister J. Jayalalitha in his tweets. In another case, the Apex Court will resume hearing on a plea seeking probe against former CBI Director Ranjit Sinha accused of scuttling investigations in the coal block allocation scam. The Supreme Court will also hear a PIL seeking its intervention to end the FTII crisis triggered by the appointment of Gajendra Chauhan as the chairman of the Premier Institute. For taxpayers, the deadline to file income tax returns ends today. This year, the last date for filing returns was first set at August 31st and later extended till September 7th. Taxpayers would still be able to file their returns after today, but with a stiff penalty. About 800 petrol and diesel pumps in 25 municipal corporations of Maharashtra will go dry today as a mark of protest against the local body tax. The dealers say it is distorting the market as the cost of fuel outside the city limits is much less than within. Moving on to some international news now. The weekend saw a tide of migrants into Austria and Germany after Hungary bowed to pressure to allow their transit to Western Europe. Having braved dangerous journeys to escape war, the refugees from Syria and other conflict zones arrived in Munich by special trains. But the unprecedented influx has forced Austria and Germany to rethink their easing of rules.
A little over 2 days of throwing open its borders to the wave of refugees travelling to Northern and Western Europe, Austria now says it's planning to phase out special measures that have allowed an unimpeded inflow of thousands of migrants. Chancellor Werner Faymann said on Sunday that Austria would remove the emergency measures for asylum seekers step by step. In a statement, Faymann said, "We've always said this is an emergency situation in which we must act quickly and humanly. We've helped more than 12,000 people in an acute situation. Now we have to move step by step away from emergency measures towards normality in conformity with law and dignity." The change means that Austria will restore spot checks on those entering the country as it had before the weekend. The decision comes following a surge of migrants entering Austria to seek asylum. Germany too, where most of the migrants are heading, has warned that its willingness to help should not be overstretched. The German Interior Ministry said on Sunday that the decision to allow migrants in over recent days was an exception, but the EU's rules requiring asylum seekers to be processed in the first country they arrive remained valid. German Chancellor Angela Merkel held a crisis meeting with her coalition partners on Sunday amid rift in her conservative bloc. Her Bavarian allies have accused her of sending a totally wrong signal to the rest of Europe by allowing the influx of migrants.
Wir können nicht als Bundesrepublik Deutschland, und darüber müssen wir heute Abend auch reden. Und das ist unser zentrales Anliegen in aller Sachlichkeit.
Earlier on Sunday, convoys from both Austria and Germany reached Hungary to pick up migrants wishing to travel westward and take them to the border with Austria.
Because you can see these people, they need our help. That's why we are coming and pick them up and bring them to a safe country.
It's really important to just give a sign to them that they are welcome and they don't have to fear of Europe, and that especially Germany is a warm country for them.
Meanwhile, Britain has decided to use part of the country's foreign aid budget to help meet the costs of accommodating Syrian refugees.
Foreign aid budget we have, and we've increased this foreign aid budget, can provide the support in the first year for these refugees, can help the local councils with things like housing costs, and we will deploy the foreign aid budget to help with the cost of these refugees.
Thousands of migrants poured into Austria and Germany over the weekend after Hungary removed restrictions on transit and helped migrants reach the Austrian border. More continue to do so from Greece and Macedonia, seeking refuge in Germany, the only country to have allowed asylum seekers in this worst migrant crisis since the Second World War. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Here's a look at some more international news in our World Wrap. At least 10 people are reported dead and 8 others believed to be missing after a boat carrying passengers on a fishing ship capsized off South Korea's southern coast. Dozens of ships began rescue operations soon after. The 3 people were rescued and flown to the nearest hospital. The 9.8-ton boat named Dolphin lost communication with another boat on Saturday evening and was found upside down in the water near the island of Chuja. A car veered off course and ploughed into the crowd at a rally in northwest Spain, killing 6 people. 2 pregnant women were among the victims of the crash. At least 16 people were injured in the crash, 6 reported to be in serious condition. The police is investigating what caused the crash. The incident took place at the Rally de A Coruña, which is a part of the Galician Championship and draws thousands of fans to the streets every year. The race was called off after the crash. Millions of Guatemalans cast their ballots on Sunday in a general election to choose a new president, vice president, 158 members of Congress and 338 mayors. The election comes in the wake of a corruption scandal which forced President Otto Perez to resign on Thursday. A runoff election is widely expected as none of the 14 presidential candidates was likely to gather 50% of the vote plus one needed. Clashes between Kurdish militants and Turkish security forces continued in the eastern Turkish town of Cizre on Sunday. 2 people have been killed in the 3 days of clashes between security forces and suspected PKK militants who have bases in the mountains of nearby northern Iraq. Meanwhile, in the town of Diyarbakir, the police used water cannons to disperse protesters gathered to denounce an air-supported operation against PKK militants. The Turkish government has accused the PKK of ramping up its attacks and repeatedly breaching the now-defunct ceasefire. Moving on to some sports news now. It was an action-packed day 7 at the US Open. Top seeds in both the men's and women's draws advanced to the next round with easy wins. Venus Williams defeated Estonia's Anett Kontaveit to set up a clash with sister Serena in the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Indo-Swiss pair of Sania Mirza and Martina Hingis also advanced to the US Open quarters. Here's a roundup of the action on day 7 at Flushing Meadows.
In the 4th round at Flushing Meadows, defending champion Serena Williams saw off a significant threat to her Grand Slam hopes with victory over 19th seed Madison Keys. Just 3 wins from competing the first calendar Grand Slam since Steffi Graf in 1988, Serena beat her fellow American 6-3, 6-3 to set up a quarter-final against her sister Venus, who defeated Estonia's Anett Kontaveit 6-2, 6-1.
Well, definitely after playing well in the last match, it helped me to be a little more relaxed coming out, and definitely experience helped a lot. I was able to understand what it's like to play in this moment more than she was, but hopefully she'll be able to stay healthy and have more experiences.
Men's defending champion Marin Cilic and 19th seed Joe Wilfred Tsonga both won and will meet in the last 8. Cilic overcame a tweaked right ankle thanks in large part to 23 aces and returned to the US Open quarters with a 6-3, 2-6, 7-6, 6-1 victory over France's Jeremy Chardy. Meanwhile, at the Indian side, Sania Mirza and Rohan Bopanna have advanced to the next round in their respective doubles match. Sania Mirza with her Swiss partner Martina Hingis outplayed Dutch-Czech pair of Michaela Krajicek and Barbora Strikova in straight sets to enter the quarterfinals. In men's doubles, Indo-Romanian pair of Rohan Bopanna and Florent Margia will play 9th seeds Daniel Nesta of Canada and Edward Roger Vasselin of France later today in the pre-quarterfinal clash. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, that's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Have a nice day.